我们看到去年美中的电影界有一个比较有意思的现象，那就是Marvel 漫威的电影之前漫威在中国有过很多成功，也有过很高的票房，但是去年我们看到漫威的3部电影可以说一部都没有被引进中国，这非常的反常，我不知道您认为这背后的原因是什么？
我觉得这要看是什么漫威电影了。比如说漫威去年在上汽中使用了一位华裔演员，然后又在电影《无依之地》Norman Land 中使用了一个华裔导演。本来这2部影片应该在大陆市场有看好，但结果大陆的网民查出2人都曾在出名之前对中国发表过一些不友好的言论，所以漫威去年也就成为了这个大陆很高涨的这种民族主义的的 collateral 来的牺牲品。另外一个主要障碍是大陆希望把国内市场留给本土的主旋律娱乐大片，也就是所谓的既具有娱乐性又具有爱国主义的所谓的这重工业电影heavy industry film。
朱教授，您提到了华裔导演赵婷呢，他因为过去在访谈中的一些言论而被中国政府封锁。那我想要问说，这对漫威他的这个电影《永恒族》没有办法在中国上映，对漫威可能是会造成多大的损失？那对于赵婷本人未来的这个导演之路，会不会增添一些挑战呢？
我想挑战是肯定有的，但是如果你从一个更长远的一个历史的角度来看。It can just be the bump in the road。但是其实最近几年最重要的一个变化就是，瞄准中国市场，而且是有中国因素的电影是变得越来越烫手，因为这种压力其实是来自2方面。比如说这个迪士尼真人版的电影《花木兰》。那么该片的主角刘亦菲，她支持香港亲建制的观点，就引起那个pro-democracy camp 的不满，所以要求 boycott。然后那个from different angle，电影上中的男主角I think the name is 刘思慕，多年前对中国的言论又导致大陆爱国网民的这个谴责。那么还有就是我们刚刚说的这个 Chloe 赵。他早期关于中国的言论也连累了他这个指导的漫威电影《永恒族》在大陆的契机。再加上 in recent years 大陆在这个涉及到跨境资金和人才流动的制度上也有一些紧缩，那么也导致中美电影合作不像以前那么密切。So the problem is not just Marvel, right? It's much broader。比如说这个依据其实自2017年3月1日起施行的这个电影产业促进法，境外电影若要寻求这个国内发行以及上映，在内容上就不允许有很多条例，比如说不允许损害国家尊严、荣誉和利益，然后还有不允许扰乱社会秩序、破坏社会稳定等等这样的因素。So and most recently, there is the Citizenship Ordinance， 就是所谓的县级令 that came into play in February 2020。这个提到了出境人员的这个国籍问题，由此被民众认为是对非中国国籍明星的限制。
Is there a response from Hollywood to China's behavior like this, or people prefer silence plus maybe some kind of work behind the scenes?
And I think the pressure, comes from all facets of life here in the United States. It's not just the U.S. government; it's also various NGOs and media and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of people have expressed their concerns, right? And in terms of whether the industry, Hollywood itself, is how do they cope with this ongoing an issue? And I'm sure there's a kind of a little bit of both, right? On the one hand, the Chinese market is very huge, and you cannot afford walking away from it. And on the other hand, they will try to avoid running into potential obstacles, and the obstacles coming from both actually in the U.S. and the Chinese market. I don't think it is a very a playbook, if you will, to say this is what you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's a lot. It entails a lot of sort of under the table negotiation. There's no real clear cut answer to that. And again, it's a business. The more expensive the film, and the more conservative studios become, and also the distributors in China, right? So you want to make sure that there's a lot of calculation that's played into it. Is it worth it to just walk away from the market, or is it it's okay if we just tweak it a little bit here and there, and therefore I have a release, right? I mean, it really is hard to have a very kind of general answer to that question.
I was reading one of your articles, and you wrote that former President Donald Trump's trade war and decoupling with China won't happen with Hollywood movies. But as you were saying, we are gonna see fewer and fewer movies centered on China in the future. That's your prediction. So, with a trend like this, will we eventually see a decoupling of Chinese and U.S. movie markets?
所谓的脱钩，其实不是中美电影市场的脱钩，脱钩的前提是这个市场的双向流通，对吧？但其实中美市场的流通一向是单向的，也就是好莱坞电影takes over occupy 中国市场。The Sino-Hollywood relation was never a real competition, and Chinese domestic films have mainly played defense or 防御战 in its own domestic market, and China was never able to compete on a sure footing until recently, and when COVID, together with tightened domestic control, effectively shut off many Hollywood imports, right? And don't forget that the build-up of the post-Deng Xiaoping era Chinese market owes much to Hollywood's return in early to mid 1990s. As I quoted elsewhere, as the Field of Dream has it, quote, "If you build it, they will come." And so now the Chinese film is ready to claim the market that was built up, its domestic market that was built up by the Hollywood films. So yes, 大陆电影这1-2年的竞争力有提高，但也是主要是在这个国内市场，在这个全球市场 ，Chinese cinema continues to be a minor league. I mean, really is a minor league or part of minor film culture in the global cinematic hierarchy, and for its lack of universal appeal and just too many regulations and top-down directives.
China released the ultra-nationalistic film Wolf Warriors and Changjinghu, and they are blockbusters in the country. How do you see its success and the art values? Do you expect audience in America favors the type of movies in the future?
And Chinese independent films or experimental art films have done well over the years, right? In an international film festival circle, and among the film fans. And so the only thing that hasn't done well is the so-called leitmotif Chinese mainstream films, and they've never garnered any real audiences in a Western market. And of course, the films we talked about earlier, The Great Wall, and then Wolf Warrior 2, and these patriotic films, and so they have no chance. And so I think and I think a part of the reason is this kind of these films, because it's so top down, so patriotic, it can rub audiences the wrong way, especially audiences in the West. And the other thing is also when it comes of storytelling, Chinese films just isn't there. So that gets back to the question, what makes Hollywood such enduring or appeal, has such an enduring appeal worldwide. What makes Hollywood films, or for that matter, Korean films, right? The new Korean films are so powerful, but Chinese films can't match.
I believe the Chinese film Wandering Earth did pretty well in the U.S. market, or I mean, at least there was quite some buzz about it. I don't know if how do you look at films, scientific fictional films like Wandering Earth?
Yeah, Wandering Earth is actually, it was a surprise. It's quite well done. It was especially considering this is the first real kind of a large-scale science fiction film, and by a new director actually, and that was I think if it's not his film debut, then it's a real one of his most earliest films. And also it did that film actually did pretty well, but there was also this controversy about these very patriotic message, and to what extent audiences in the West can stomach that kind of a message.
Professor Zhu, you teach in Hong Kong Baptist University. We know that Hong Kong used to be a vibrant hub for film production, but probably not anymore. Now we see movies like Revolution of Our Times, which won Taiwan's Golden Horse Award, banned in the city. Are you optimistic about Hong Kong's film future? Is there still a viable filmmaking community in Hong Kong?
In the Hong Kong film industry has been in decline since the late 1990s, and the pace has only accelerated after 1997, partly because a lot of the filmmakers have migrated north, right? So the so-called Northern Expedition, and because the market is in the north, and also the cash is talking about north of the border, right? So so that actually, and this is nothing new, right? In terms of what's new, of course, is the kind of now we have a very restrictive censorship rule here, and so that will cut into the type of films that there's allowed to produce, and so on and so forth. So of course, this is not going to have a positive impact to the Hong Kong filmmaking community at large.